Welcome to the next session of Mic'd Up with Mike. In this session, what we're going to do is we're going to cover goaltender interference. We covered goaltender interference last year, but this is one of the most talked about calls in college hockey. We thought it would be good to cover that again. Goaltender interference was talked about a new rule year that just was this past summer, and we have a new rule year right now. And we talked about tackling goaltender interference to get it more defined, more black and white. And in the end, the directors of officiating and the NCAA just could not come to a definition of what is the black and white call on goaltender interference. The closest thing we came back to is reverting back to the old way of just if anybody's in the blue paint, in the crease, blowing the whistle and shutting the play down. But nobody wanted to go back to that, and we just kept everything in place for goaltender interference for this upcoming year. Two things about goaltender interference is that there's judgment with goaltender interference, and I'm going to explain how our officials go into that judgment, mate with the guidelines. And the second is that not every situation is the same. Every situation is different, and you really can't look at every situation equally, as every situation is different with goaltender interference. As I said previously, judgment does come into play with each official when looking at goaltender interference. These are the guidelines that we give the officials for goaltender interference. There's 5 guidelines. Not each one has to be met to allow a goal or to disallow a goal, but this is the guidelines that the officials are given to look at each video that they're reviewing. The first video is just from a recent play that took place between ASU and Duluth. The on-ice call was a goal. ASU challenged the call for goaltender interference, and after review, the call on the ice stood as it was a goal. Now, an individual looking at this might look at it and said that the goaltender ASU was interfered, was not able to play the position. The big factor on this is when the player from Duluth, who's on the left side of the crease, was pushed into the goaltender. People might say, well, how hard was the push? But however, he was pushed to start that play. And as you can see, 15 tries to get out of the crease by moving more to neutral ice, but he is pushed yet again into the goaltender. So this action comes down to that the ASU player was pushing the Duluth player into the goaltender, and he had nowhere to go but into the goaltender himself, and this was ruled a goal. And this is a play with ASU and Michigan, and some people might say, well, this is exactly what happened in the previous video. But if you look at the Michigan player, he is at the top, and the ASU's got his back to him, and he's in the act of playing the Michigan player, not actually pushing him. And the determining factor on this one was, and it was called a no goal after review, is look at the Michigan player's stick. It goes into the goaltender of ASU and goes into the goaltender's right leg, thus causing him not to play his position. So this was deemed that the Michigan player was not pushed in the goaltender, and that he did interfere with the goaltender from being able to play his position. And what I want to point out is that when the officials do review a goal, they get different angles, and each angle looks different. So as a spectator, you might see one angle, and you look at it clearly that's going to be goaltender interference, or it's not, but the other angle might show different. As you look at this angle from the neutral zone, it looks like nothing really happens. Goal is scored. The call on the ice was a goal, and then what happened is Western Michigan wanted to review for goaltender interference, and it was determined that there was no goaltender interference. It was a good goal. Now, when you go to the overhead camera, you can see is what Western Michigan is looking at. Did the Denver player who's in the crease right now, he's in there on his own, doesn't interfere with the goaltender, but was that goaltender able to play his position with his stick? And it was determined that the Denver players being in the crease did not effectively cause the Western Michigan goaltender not to play his position, and this was called a good goal. As we're talking about angles, I'm going to continue on with this play from the CC St. Cloud game, where this was called a no goal after review. And as you look at this shot here from neutral ice, it does not look like the CC player is pushed in. Looks like he's actually being pulled back a little bit by the St. Cloud player. But when you go to the overhead view, it looks a little bit different, as it looks like he could be possibly being pushed in by the St. Cloud player with that hand on the left side, left hand on his back. But if you looked at this angle only, you might come to the determination that he was pushed in, the CC player was pushed in. However, if you look at the other angle, he wasn't not pushed in, and you can tell that the CC player didn't interfere with the goaltender, The goaltender from St. Cloud was not able to play his position to make that secondary save, and this was called off as a no goal. The last one, I just want to show that there was a whole lot of stuff going on this one. This is a Alaska-Omaha game where it was a overtime goal, and it was determined that it was a good goal. And as you can tell by the play, there's a lot going on in the crease. But what happens is when the puck goes in the crease, Alaska is allowed to go in and play that puck. And while they're in the crease, the only contact with the goaltender is right here is with the Omaha player, defenseman, actually taking his stick and turning the goaltender around. And when the puck is in the crease, there's no contact with Alaska made by the Omaha goaltender, and he was able to play his position. Person looking at this from the stands would say, how would this ever stand with possibly 3 players at a time in the crease? But as you could tell, the goaltender being turned around was done by his own player, and there was no contact with Alaska on the Omaha goaltender. Thanks for joining us for another session of Mic'd Up with Mike. We will see you in 2025 with our next version. Again, if you have any suggestions or want us to cover anything, please let us know down below.